Insurance, my favorite topic.
Yes, and we've actually had insurance on here before. It might be time to get them back into the studio with us.
Yeah.
So I just had winter conference, obviously, with the state, and we were talking about some interesting things that are starting to happen. And I know that the stories we've heard from the California fires and from Florida having all the devastation that happened there, in North Carolina with their impacts. We have these states that are talking about insurance dilemmas that they're having. And it kind of surprised me to start hearing some of these things trickling into Ohio.
Or when you hear that an insurance company profited, several $billions last year, but they dropped everybody in California and then the wildfires came through and burned all their houses down.
Yeah.
Like, that's not cool.
Yeah. So the idea of, obviously, if you're a homeowner and you're going to buy a home, insurance is a part of that requirement in order to be able to get that loan. So people have to have insurance in place, and they have to be able to pay that premium. It's a part of their mortgage payment, or they pay it up front. But what we're hearing about is starting to give us some alarms, and that is, with all of these dramatic things that have happened in other states, how is our Ohio insurance working? Is it affecting us? Is it because of a national company? Maybe.
Well, last year we had more tornadoes than we've had in 20 years.
So we've had our own issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what interesting ideas were shared with these inspectors was talking about how, when you do the home inspection, when you're in the process of buying, you do a home inspection so that you know what's wrong with the house or what are any issues that you might need to remedy. And that information is particular for that time, for that buyer with that house, right? But that doesn't really go anywhere. Like, you're not supposed to just share that information openly. So I would tell clients, make sure that when we receive this inspection report, it doesn't go to your lender, it doesn't go to the insurance company. It's your information for reading, for future, right? For what you might want to work with. And we may work with the seller to resolve if there's some issues, but other than that, it's just FYI, right? So they've had instances where a buyer didn't realize they weren't supposed to share that information, and the buyer sends it to the lender. And then the lender is not wanting to do the deal because, wait a minute, what is all of this? Like, if this issues are here and they're in the house, we can't insure it. Mm-hmm. We can't send a loan for it.
But there's going to be issues with any house.
For sure. So again, if you have the lender who's not willing to do the loan because they now think or have information that there's these issues with the house, and then the insurance company is saying the same thing, that's kind of rationale why we don't share that information. Like, that's information for the buyer and the seller to resolve if there's issues. But other than that, typical boilerplate language that's in those reports could potentially make somebody really concerned. Well, what do you mean it's at its life end cycle? Well, it still works, it's functioning, so there's not a problem. But they're using it as an option to say maybe not do the deal. Well, we don't want that for people. We don't want people to be uncomfortable with it. But what concerns me more is that there's been these stories of the deals have gone through, and now insurance companies are coming back to the buyer and saying, well, we sent an adjuster out to the area just as random audits of the area of the house or something, right? And it was found that the roof needs to be replaced. Well, if that wasn't something that came up in the home inspection because there wasn't a defect or anything like that, but now you put that buyer in a position where they have to buy and have a new roof installed, that is very hurtful and damaging to the process, to that buyer.
Yeah.
But they're going to be like, well, how did this happen? So
I've heard a couple of stories, in one of my mom's groups, that people got a notice from their insurance company that said you need to replace your roof by this date or we're dropping you.
Yeah.
If you have a mortgage, how does that work?
Yeah, so that's a very big concern, and it's being brought up. So we have to be able to find a way to rectify this. Is there an industry requirement? Is there a timeline? And I think this is going to be something that we need to get our insurance person back in and ask about, because the consumers want to know. So we've got a story we're going to share, and this is about a lady with a tree in her front yard.
Real estate agent who I've spoken to said that they're starting to see this a lot more.
Sure.
The city has not responded, but I will let you know if they get back to us on this. But
What a catch-22.
crazy situation. And obviously, you know, you want to protect the trees. They're really, really wonderful and beautiful. But when you're talking about a place where there's a housing crisis, you just think, can there be something that can be done to help all these people who majority of their net worth, their equity is in these.
Imagine being a homeowner and not being able to sell your home because of a tree. That's right, a tree. And normally this is HOA behavior, normally. But this is the insurance company and the city working together to stop this lady from selling her home. Now, listen, this is a crazy story. This is something that we're seeing happen over and over again. You know the reason why? Because these companies aren't loyal. Because these insurance companies, they don't want to keep you on the policy. Any way that they can get you out of the policy, they will do it. And this is just another sneaky way for insurance companies to tell you, get out of here. You're too high of a risk.
And it's a protected tree in this area. So city municipality says you can't take the tree down, but the insurance is requiring it to be removed because of the hazard they say that it presents. And the lady wants to sell her house. But now the insurance is dropping her, so the next person's not going to be able to get the insurance. City's protecting it. So what do you do when you have these two different entities that are telling you conflicting information?
Mm-hmm.
This is troubling to see that this kind of battle is starting to take place in multiple ways and across all of the states. So if it's coming on, we need to start addressing these things ahead of time to say, how do we protect ourselves as the buyer or the seller if I'm trying to sell it and this is going to be the issue and nobody's going to be able to get it. When we talk about flood insurance is that extra premium that if your home is near waterway, that it may be low lying and found to be in a floodplain, there's an extra layer of insurance that's required. The government offsets that and is helping people to be able to get that specific insurance, but it comes at a premium.
Mm-hmm.
Like $1,200 is a starting price for that in addition to your homeowner policy.
Yeah, like
And-
I had just moved from Nashville when Nashville literally flooded the whole city.
Yes, yes. So you know how important it is to have if you're in that region when it happens, right? But imagine that you have your home, your loan value, and you have your insurance, your typical, but now you find out there's this additional insurance that I have to have, and it's basically going to double that cost. Some people aren't able to absorb that kind of cost, and it kills the deal. Well, if that's the case, but now we're talking about because of a tree that you're not able to get the insurance, or maybe you have to have an add-on premium. These are things that are getting out of control for the normal consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as an industry, we need to start looking at how do we protect ourselves and how do we protect the consumer, either on the sell side or the buy side, to be prepared for those types of things. Because the more that this gets heard about and issues and things that happen like in California where wildfires are taking out 60,000 plus homes, a lot of those didn't have appropriate insurance on them.
Right.
What we're hearing is if the insurance companies that were there had capped at a lower level than what the value of the replacement of that home is, you've got people who are going to be in a negative situation.
Mm-hmm.
You've got people in North Carolina who didn't have whatever hurricane protection because they didn't realize they were in hurricane being in the middle of the state, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who has that, right?
Yeah.
But then you have Florida that's definitely in hurricane, but their rates have gone so high that if you're on a fixed income or limited money, it may be the thing you let lapse. And now you're at a loss, and now what do? People just have to walk away, and that's not a comfortable feeling at anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that, insurance changes are something that we need to pay attention to. And you as a consumer, if you're hearing this, you need to take a look at your policy. And I think that's advisable to just have a review of the policy, make sure that it meets what's current going on. I know some of the discussions are talking about, how do you protect your home of these events? If you have brush leaning up against the house or the tree overhangs the house. Those are some of the concerns that have been cited from the insurance company. Those are things that you can maybe address until you hit the municipality zoning or something that's going to give you the roadblock.
Yeah.
Then you have to be proactive about it. And you absolutely want to reach out.
So my dad told me that he got one of those letters, from his insurance company that they're going to drop you, whatever. And he just went and got insurance with somebody else because there's so many insurance companies. Is that typically the case?
Yeah.
Or is that tree going to prohibit that lady from having insurance across the board?
Yeah, so that's the discussion. As some of these systems become maybe interchangeable, that they have information from one to the other, shared information base, then it may be as one company gets away with doing this, like I'm not going to cover anything above a $3 million threshold so we can limit our risk. Well, if another company decides that, this is where your DOJ should come into play and say, what are your insurance companies actually doing? Let's put these guys to work in a way that actually benefits the consumer. Because if one insurance company does it and then all follow suit, now the consumer is put at a negative hold. And I think that's where we would expect government interaction to say, this isn't allowed. You can't do this. If you're receiving the premiums, then you have to prove the benefit, right?
Yeah. And we know insurance companies have lobbyists in DC.
Yes.
So
And-
is there lobbyists from realtors or?
Yeah, we are very, very proactive in lobbying for the rights of property owners and for some of this legislation that comes out and works against home ownership rights, the ability to be able to do with the home what you are wanting to do, within reason, of course, but also the cost and the process that are associated with housing. If municipalities put out this ban about you can't get rid of any of these particular types of trees, and that creates a hardship for somebody. If you have high winds in the area and that tree, even though it might be a protected style, it's not very functionable in my yard, I should be able to take it down.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be some give and take in this, some common sense, right? Oh gosh, don't we wish that was everywhere?
It's coming back.
But I think that's why you do reach out. And if you have that issue, sometimes you may be getting that before somebody else realizes it's happening. So if you talk about it, you share that information, then more people can hear about it. And then when they say, wait a minute, I got a letter like that too, maybe we need to look at that. Is it a insurance company specific? Is it an area specific? And that's where I think somebody like me who's an advocate for these types of things is going to dig into it and say, well, what can we do? Who do we need to write a letter to and get some attention to this? Because ultimately it's going to affect home ownership.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today on the Realty Podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. We will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.